Your half-an-hour dose of positive and uplifting news starts right now. I am the bearer of those good news. My name is Pule Molebatsi, and yes, you guessed it right. This is Stories Untold. It is often said that the measure of a man is not how he behaves in moments of comfort and convenience, but rather how he stands at times of controversy and challenges. Today, we follow the story of Clint Victor. Let's have a look.
My name is Clint, surname is Victor. Many people get that wrong, they think Victor's the first name. What a story. I'm an ordained minister. However, and this will become clear later on, I don't pastor any congregational church as such. I work for an NGO where we do preventative education, so I'm constantly doing public speaking, presentations, etc. I've been told that I've been gifted by God to communicate a message to people. I'm not quite convinced yet, but people seem to like when I speak. So that's who I am, in a nutshell. I was born in a small community called Bosmont, in the west of Johannesburg. We're 6 children, mom and dad, raised us both. Dad was most of the time at work, and mom was at home. However, even though mom was at home, in my lifetime at least, she ran a daycare center. So there was always other children and other babies around as well. Eldest sister is a nursing sister who currently resides in the US. I've got a brother that's a medical doctor. The third child is also a sister. She's a specialist radiologist. And the brother just before me, brilliant accountant. When you give him figures and accounting and all that, he just excels at that. And of course, my younger brother is into insurance, which is also brilliant at. And there I found myself as the second last born child, not knowing what to do with my life as a teenager, a rebel without a cause, as they say. And so I struggled a lot at school because I went to the same school where my siblings went to. And they excelled at school, and there was always this expectation put on this Victor boy to be as good as his brothers and sisters. I mean, they got awards at school for academics, and I hated school with a passion. And because I hated school, I never excelled at school, bunked school most of the time. I always used to play church because my father had the keys to the church that was located directly opposite our home in Bosmont. And I used to take the keys, open the church, and play in front of the pulpit, all on my own, preaching and praying and, doing a big act there in front of the church. And of course, there was no one there. It just so happened that later in life, I found the Lord. I became a youth pastor in a particular church. I then decided at the age of 29, late in life, to go and study the ministry and get my theology degree, which I did in Cape Town. And I was then ordained, well, not ordained at that time, but I became a pastor. I was hired as a pastor. And I pastored for over 12 years in a particular church. Life was good for me. I had everything that I could have ever imagined. And not only the material wealth, which we can speak about later, but the respect from people, the adoration from people, a purpose in life. I ministered every weekend to people. Life was good, and there was a purpose for my life. But something happened. And I can give you various reasons why this event happened in my life. But every reason might just come across as being some sort of justification for what I did. However, what happened was that I had a moral fall. And for those that don't understand the term moral fall, it's simply put, I unfortunately had an affair with a lady that was also in the church denomination. Wasn't very stretched out or long drawn. It happened within 1 month, and within that month, boom, my life changed forever. Obviously, my wife found out, and I took it upon myself to report it to the church denomination and the head office. And because of it being a moral fall, the policy of the church is that you need to obviously be let go, fired. And so I lost my ministry. I used to pastor about 4 or 5 churches at one time during that period. And all of that within a matter of an hour after reporting myself to the head office. changed immediately, because the minute I reported what I had done, boom, everything changed. I wasn't allowed to go back to the churches. Everything changed. Everything changed. And my family life, of course, changed immediately.
Welcome back to Stories Untold, and thank you for staying with us. Clint Victor experienced a moral fall in his life as well as failure, but these encounters would later lead him to his restoration and redemption. Let's see.
I decided to come clean, report myself to the office or the elders or the church or my supervisor or boss, because in my mind, it was what needed to be done. I realized that what I did was wrong. There's no justification or excuse for what I did. It should never have happened. A moral fall is a huge issue in various denominations of churches. In the particular denomination that I was working for, it is a fundamental policy and a fundamental rule that a moral fall constitutes a dismissal. Why? Because you are called to be not only a pastor for namesake, you need to be an example to the congregants. You need to basically live morality so that people can see God in you, so that people can see there is a possibility to live the straight and narrow lifestyle. My moral fall impacted my family immensely, besides all the material wealth that was lost. And let's just speak about that. It's not only me that lost the house or the motorbike or the car or the community standing. My family lost that too. And I struggled with that for a while, because even though the church policy says, you need to be dismissed because of what you did, it's not only me. That was my wife's home. It was my daughter's home, So they lost all of that. And it affected them immensely, materially, but more so emotionally. I won't lie, we still struggle up to today, my wife and I. I think I struggle more than what they realize, because I'm sorry for what I did, I'm ashamed for what I did. I sometimes lay awake at night and think, if I didn't, what could have been? And of course the respect that I know I lost in both my daughter and my wife's eyes, and the admiration. Here's a man of God, and he's supposed to be the ultimate example, but he's also my dad, he's my husband, and I disappointed them in that. I mean, nobody saw this coming. Even my wife and my daughter would often say, I never expected you to do what you did. And the 5 churches, I was cut off from them. I could have gone back to them, but not as a minister. But my embarrassment, my shame, kept me away. And even up to today, 6 years later, I haven't been back to those churches, because it's embarrassing, However, I'm over it. God has forgiven me. I'm confident in that. I still struggle with people around me that unfortunately live with a certain level of judgment. And it's strange, and I thank you for this opportunity, so that people can realize that even though somebody makes a mistake, it doesn't mean that they're not a good person. Your mistake cannot and should not define who you are fundamentally. Before my fall, I saw myself in a certain light. I saw myself as honorable, as called of God to do a certain job for Him. And without being arrogant, and there's no arrogance in this, but I recognized that God had given me a gift to communicate. And I loved getting up on the pulpit. I loved preaching with conviction. I loved doing that. And whatever I preached and whatever I prepared to preach, I had the conviction, because I knew that I was okay in those areas, or I needed work in those areas. And There was no blame on me. I could speak with conviction and say, you know what, guys, if you need to forgive, forgive, because I knew what forgiveness was in my life. After the fall, I struggled immensely. I never preached for years. I couldn't see myself get up in front of or behind a pulpit because of what I did. I just didn't feel worthy. My rise from my fall happened over a period of time. I was given a phenomenal opportunity to join full-time basis, the NGO that I'm currently with. The individuals that gave me this opportunity made it very clear that regardless of my fall, I am still a pastor. I am still worthy of something. I can still do something. And that gave me an immense boost of confidence. It made me realize that there is more to me, Clint, than what was dictated to me when I was asked to leave the church. I was also reminded, as I continued to speak to my God, I was reminded of the Bible verse that says that I did not choose him. He chose me. He chose me to bear fruit for him, fruit that will last. And I wanted to live up to that verse, which is one of my favorite verses, that God chose me for a purpose. He chose me for a specific plan. And even though I went a little detour, I had to pull myself back. I had to coach myself and tell myself that my fall was not my destination. My fall would not determine who I am and who I will ultimately end up to be. I will not be defined by what I did.
How can we rise if we have not been burned, if we have not fallen? The rise from his fall is an empty canvas that he has now painted a new destiny of impact and significance of himself. Take a look at this.
So the opportunity that was given to me after my fall to start working full-time at the NGO called Alcohol and Drug Concerns. I was hired to be a consultant, fundraiser, and it later morphed into me becoming the office manager. I was directly, and still am, involved in the presentations that were done at schools, because that was predominantly what we were doing, where we would do preventative education on the dangers of substance abuse. So we would work in schools, we would do school debates, assembly talks. We then started doing counselor training, where we would train individuals from communities to know how to counsel their compatriots in the community, basic counselor training. We done that, and various other work that we do. We do counseling at the center where people come in and we can do counseling. Schools refer their students to us. We have career days that we do with various stakeholders. And there's a long list of stakeholders. I don't have their permission to share that now, but there's a long list of stakeholders. Government institutions that we work with on career days, 16 days of activism every single year for the past 6 years. I've been involved in that at big scale, where I would do the emceeing at the event, etc.
Due to the COVID-19 rules and regulations and the level 3 lockdown, we unfortunately were not able to visit the schools that Clint impacts and see the incredible community programs that he is a part of.
The impact that the NGO has on communities and all stakeholders, I would like to think, is huge. It's very difficult to blow your own trumpet, but Alcohol and Drug Concerns has done major inroads in communities, especially with counselor training, where we would have these counselor training sessions for a week or two, and we'd have a graduation, and we would then see our graduates go back into their communities and help their community members. So much so that we've done a counseling course in Cape Town with our sister organization, a branch there, and those students that were part of that counseling course actually got employed by the schools in the area, and they got paid salaries to be the resident counselors at the schools. Another program that we did was with the correctional services, where we would take groups of kids to a prison. And I'm not just talking the prison lawns or the outside reception area. They arranged it in such a way that the kids, a group of kids, sometimes 30 kids at a time, girls and boys separately, would go into the actual cells where the prisoners live their lives. And those inmates would actually give us a talk of the mistakes they made in their lives and the consequences of crime. So it was phenomenal. And highlighted to me is the face of the children, especially those boys, when they saw these hardened criminals speak to them. You could see in their eyes that they are making decisions not to go into crime because they would never want to end up in that place. The work of alcohol and drug concerns and prevention as such is so important to me personally. As I grew up, being the second youngest of 6 children, I found myself in a pretty precarious situation. Hated school, was always compared to my siblings' successes in life, and I started drinking a lot of alcohol, smoking a lot of cigarettes. And what my family didn't quite know, and I'm exposing myself now as well, I experimented with a host of drugs just to escape the pressure that they probably didn't realize they put in on me, or society didn't realize they put it on me, just to get away from the pressure of that expectation of being one of the family success stories. Alcohol and drugs is ravaging our communities. The meaning in the struggles I've been through and the struggles that I see every day is this, that nobody can be counted out. There's deep appreciation for a fall. There's deep appreciation for a mistake made. A mistake made is an opportunity for a comeback. A mistake made gives you the opportunity to realize what you shouldn't do. The true measure of a man, in my opinion, is relative to the man. You can't box or envelope any particular person, and when I say man, it's generic, it's male or female. In my opinion, it would be somebody that is true to him or herself and tries his or her best to do what is good and honorable to the best of their ability. No one's perfect. The true measure of a man would understand and accept that he is fallible, that there is imperfections, but that you would recognize your challenges in your life and work on them, that you would recognize your good or your potential and work on them to make them even stronger. A true measure of a man is being able to say, I'm sorry.
The way I see Clint, the way I perceive him, if you take a candle into a dark room and you light it, the room starts to shine and starts to brighten up. And that's exactly who Clint Victor is. He's a candle. If he walks into a place, he just brightens up the whole place. His persona, his character, the way he is, his mannerism, absolutely just brightens up the whole area.
He's a special person in the sense that he's a good listener, and he's also not, I believe, from my perspective, he's also not arrogant.
The most valuable lessons that I've taken from Clint is love, passion, compassion, empathy, just mannerism, character. He really builds your character when you're with him, and he really lifts you up.
How he impacted my life is quite powerful, and I would like to give you a small story, quick story, and that goes, in all human beings got 2 minds. You've got a reactive mind and you've got an emotional mind. Now in between that 2 minds interlink, and in between that 2 minds is a thing called wise man. So he became my wise man. If I am not sure how to react or emotionally react or react to a situation, you normally ask yourself, how would the wise man react? And he became my wise man for the past 7 years.
The way that Clint changed my life, as I started to work with this organization, ADC, I was involved in community projects and community outreaches and public speaking, and I had a manner of doing it which I thought had an impact on the community. Then I met Clint Victor, and then the way, that charismatic way he has with people, and that shining that he has, that light that he brings forth, I started to adapt that, and I actually stole a little bit of his character and a little bit of his mannerisms, and I stole it for myself. I took it and I implemented it in my line of work, the way I go about doing things, and the impact that had, and just his flow, like water streaming down the river, the flow that he has, I've implemented that, and it's impacted people so much, and it impacted my life, seeing that I can change, and there's more to doing things than my way. There's other ways, and the way that he does it really influences people's lives, and it actually speaks into people's lives.
My encouragement to anyone that is going through a current fall, or that had a fall, post their fall, or is busy entangled in the actual thing right now, sure, absence of arrogance. If you start making excuses for the decisions you've made, you're going down the wrong path and a very dark path. Secondly, don't count yourself out. Your mistake should not define who you are.